Benji B. Honeysworth III was, by every measurable standard, a perfectly ordinary honeybee. 5 millimeters tall, 2 wings, and a chronic case of Monday morning gloom. His day job involved foraging for nectar and doing the waggle dance to show his colleagues where the good flowers were. Unfortunately, Benji's waggle dance was terrible. Instead of announcing a GPS precise location, his dance looked like a confused cha-cha, sending dozens of bees hurtling toward car windshields and picnic coolers. After one too many near misses with a thermos lid, management reassigned Benji to Hive infrastructure maintenance. Translation: sweep up wax flakes and polish the royal honey jars. On his first maintenance shift, Benji zoomed down corridor 7B and crashed directly into a hexagonal column. Wax chips flew, and he found himself staring up at a fresco of the royal family etched on the ceiling. It depicted Queen Beatrice wearing an enormous crown, reclining on a chaise longue made of crystallized pollen. The fresco's detailing was exquisite. Swirled comb moldings, floral motifs, honey-lacquered sconces. Benji's antennae twitched in admiration. "Who designed that?" he muttered. A janitorial moth named Larva Lynn fluttered by, lugging a mop. "Ah, some old-timer. Nobody's touched the royal apartments in ages. Apparently, Her Majesty thinks redecorating is frivolous, unless you're brave enough to persuade her otherwise." That night, Benji lay awake in his wax bunk, staring at the crooked comb pattern of the ceiling above him. Everywhere he looked, he noticed what could be improved. That wall could use gilded propolis trim. Those storage cells could be converted into mezzanine levels. The entire lighting system could benefit from a few strategically placed bioluminescent aphid orbs. By dawn, he'd made a decision. He wasn't going to waggle or sweep anymore. He was going to become the Hive's first interior decorator. Step 1. Branding. He fashioned a miniature business card out of a sunflower petal. Benji B. Honeysworth III, Cone Couture and Aesthetic Consultancy. Step 2. Portfolio. He set up a pop-up design studio in an unused larva chamber. He borrowed wax shavings, pollen pigments, and a dash of royal jelly glaze. For sheen, he whispered to himself, accidentally consuming half of it and buzzing like a jackhammer for 10 minutes. His maiden project was Mrs. Bumbleton's nursery. The bumblebee matriarch needed 16 cribs for her soon-to-hatch brood. Benji sculpted cradle-shaped cells, each with a different pastel hue, fragrance-infused walls, and a mobile made from dangling daisy petals. The babies hatched into the insect equivalent of a 5-star hotel. Word spread like a nectar leak. 2 afternoons later, Benji got an urgent scroll delivered by a snail courier. The wax-encrusted royal crest sealed it. Summons to the throne room, attendance mandatory or else. Benji wiped pollen dust off his thorax, plucked a stray leg hair, and flew, knees knocking. The throne room was an amphitheater of shimmering honeycomb arches and echoing buzz. Guard hornets brandishing stingers the size of javelins blocked the aisle. At center sat Queen Beatrice on a throne carved from solid amber. Her wings were folded like origami fans, and she wore a veil of translucent sugar crystals. She studied Benji through compound eyes that could detect a single grain of pollen from a mile away. "Approach," she commanded. Benji felt his thorax constrict. "Your Majesty," he squeaked. "My royal advisors tell me you've been redecorating." She pronounced redecorating the way one might pronounce trespassing or tap dancing in a library. The court murmured. Benji swallowed. "Yes, Your Eminence. I believe every cell deserves to sparkle. Even the drone dormitories could use accent walls, perhaps a chevron pattern?" Silence. Then the queen emitted a low hum that vibrated the columns. "Interesting. I have tolerated the same honeycomb palace for 32 swarms. Perhaps it is time for a refresh. However," she leaned forward, "if you waste my royal resources, you will be reassigned to guard duty in the Hornet Barracks. Do we understand each other?" Benji saluted so hard his antenna nearly detached. "Crystal clear." She clapped her wings. "Very well. I will grant you 3 worker crews, a budget of 1 royal jelly vat, and a timeline of 1 week to impress me. Design me a brand new luxury honeycomb mansion fit for a queen, You may begin now." The next morning, Benji assembled his team. Bazelda the sculptor, Tiny Beret, perpetual eye roll, Ned Nectarson the logistics bee, Brawny allergic to sawdust irony and motion. He unfurled a blueprint so large it knocked 2 drones unconscious. "Behold," he declared, "we shall create the concierge residence. Open plan hexagons, mezzanine flight paths, pollen velar chaise lounges, and an infinity honey pool overlooking the wildflower meadow." Zelda squinted. "Is that a waterfall?" "A honeyfall," Benji corrected. "Gravity fed from the upper apiary." Cliff sneezed. "Allergic," he reminded them, eyes watering. Ned scratched figures on his clipboard. "We're over budget by—" "Oh, everything, friends," Benji said. "If we run out of jelly, we'll upcycle propolis from the storage vaults. Sustainability sells." Construction began with a ceremonial nibble of good luck clover nectar. Within hours, the job site looked like a miniature Grand Central terminal. Wax mixers whirred, drone interns lured by promises of exposure carried pigment jars. The air smelled like caramelized sunshine. Day 1 began with disaster. Cliff mismeasured a support beam and the ceiling drooped like a tired eyelid. Buzelda found the asymmetry avant-garde until it collapsed and flattened her beret. Benji hurried over, calming the crew with motivational slogans. "A mishap is merely a prehap." They reinforced the ceiling, using spare honey jars as buttresses. Unfortunately, sun-warmed honey melts. By dusk, the jars oozed everywhere, trapping 3 interns like insects in amber. Because they were insects in amber. Day 2, Ned announced they had spent 93% of their jelly budget on gold leaf to line the Queen's breakfast nook. Benji bargained with a family of carpenter ants for cut-rate labor in exchange for unlimited crumbs from the palace pantry. The ants agreed, then held a tiny union meeting and demanded ergonomic safety helmets fashioned from acorn caps. Negotiations took hours. Day 3 brought an unexpected site visit from Royal Inspector Barnabas, a corpulent bee with half-moon spectacles and a stickler's soul. He measured wall thickness, tested the honeyfall viscosity, and disapproved of everything. "The hexagonal ratio here is scandalous," he huffed. "And what's this color?" He jabbed at a lavender accent wall. "Lavender?" Benji ventured. "We only approve primrose, marigold, or butternut. Lavender incites rebellion," Bazelda whispered. "He incites acid reflux." Benji coaxed the inspector toward the infinity honey pool. "Picture it, sir. The queen gazing out over her kingdom, honey cascading to the horizon." Inspector Barnabas stepped too close. His weight shifted the honey surface tension. With a glorp, he sank like a marshmallow in fondue. Cliff gasped, "Bee overboard!" It took 30 frantic minutes, 2 ladles, and a crane fly to hoist him out. Dripping and sputtering, Barnabas declared, "Acceptable." Benji exhaled. Day 4, Benji decided the mansion required one show-stopping element: a chandelier made from crystallized sugar droplets. Creating it involved coaxing aphids to excrete perfectly spherical sucrose pearls, an art requiring flattery, love songs, and gentle massages. Benji volunteered. 12 hours later, he returned, antennae singed, reeking of aphid cologne, but triumphantly dragging a net of glittering orbs. Bazelda assembled them into a chandelier so radiant that passing butterflies crashed into walls, stunned by the sparkle. Day 5 was paint day. The crew mixed pollen pigments, dandelion gold, cornflower blue, and a daring hibiscus fuchsia. The drones splattered more paint on themselves than the walls. Ned tallied the mess. "We're negative jelly," he told Benji. Benji bit his lip. "We can still salvage this. The queen values grandeur. If we amplify the entrance arch—" A messenger bee interrupted, panting. "Emergency! Her Majesty's annual Nectar Gala is tomorrow night. She intends to unveil your mansion to foreign dignitaries." No pressure. Day 6 was a caffeine-fueled blur. Bees zipped on triple espresso nectar shots. The ants unionized again, striking for dental benefits. Cliff sneezed so violently he perforated a wall, which Bazelda turned into an abstract air vent. The honeyfall clogged, the chandelier overcrystallized, and a rogue hornet from security tried to occupy the guest suite for morale. By twilight, the place still looked like a construction site wearing lipstick. Benji retreated to a quiet alcove, wings drooping. For the first time since ripping up his waggle dance career, he doubted himself. Larvalyn, the janitorial moth, fluttered in. "Heard you were spiraling," she said, offering a thimble of chamomile nectar. "I'm doomed," Benji murmured. "Tomorrow the queen will evict me, or worse, promote me to hornet wrangler." Larvalyn tilted her head. "Listen, honey," she winked at her pun. "You've got vision. You just need perspective." She led him to a vantage point at the top of a scaffold. Below stretched the half-finished mansion, glowing amber under firefly work lamps. Even unfinished, the architecture was breathtaking. Curved comb balconies cascaded like waves. The lavender wall looked rebellious, sure, but it shimmered. The chandelier, though covered in dust, sparkled like a sugar galaxy. Benji's eyes widened. "It's not a catastrophe," she said. "It's potential, and you've got 12 hours." Benji straightened his thorax, inhaled pollen-scented air, and shouted, "Team meeting!" He gathered every worker, intern, ant, and hornet. Friends, colleagues, insects of all thoraxes. Tomorrow the queen expects luxury. She expects grandeur. She expects an interior worthy of her crown, and I believe we can deliver. But it'll take unity, resilience, and at least 2 more espresso nectar kegs. Who's with me? The ants cheered after securing dental benefits. Drones churned wax. Cliff donned a pollen mask to mitigate sneezes. Bazelda sketched a new mural for the rebellious lavender wall, a stylized portrait of Queen Beatrice wielding a scepter like a lightsaber. It was epic. All night they worked. They resealed honey jars into support columns, polished floors with bee-speed polish, and strategically placed reflective propolis panels to spread light. Benji personally hand-picked royal jelly moldings, carving microscopic swirls that would make a sugarcraft champion weep. By dawn, weary but exhilarated, the crew hovered as the first sunbeam pierced the entrance arch. The mansion glowed. Gala day. Diplomats buzzed in velvet-clad bumblebees, jewel-toned butterflies, even a delegation of skeptical carpenter ants wearing tuxedo crumbs. Trumpet beetles blasted fanfares. At the grand entrance, Queen Beatrice, flanked by hornet guards, awaited the reveal. Benji fluttered beside her, trying not to perspire wax. He pushed open the gilded doors. Gasps rippled through the crowd. First, the corridor of chromatic honey. Amber-lit walls refracted sunlight through thin honey panels, creating a kaleidoscope effect that danced over guests like confetti. A visiting orchid bee fainted in delight. Second, the mezzanine flight lounge. Curved stair ribs allowed seamless takeoff and landing, eliminating mid-air collisions, a common gallow hazard. Nectar cocktails were served in dewdrop goblets, resting on floating lily pad tables suspended by spider silk. "Eco-luxury," Ned whispered. Third, the infinity honey pool. Now framed by marble wax pillars, it appeared to merge with the horizon. A subtle buzz-activated current kept the surface undisturbed. Inspector Barnabas inspected from afar, wearing a life vest. Fourth, the rebel lavender wall. Buzz Zelda's mural commanded attention. Queen Beatrice rendered larger than life, her wings artfully exaggerated, her crown haloed by starbursts of pollen dust. Instead of rebellion, it shouted reverence. The queen paused before it, her expression unreadable. Finally, the grand ballroom beneath the aphid chandelier. Sugar crystals refracted rainbow light in slow rotation, like a disco ball in a snow globe. A string quartet of crickets played Bach's Air on the G string, or Air on the B string as they called it, while dignitaries floated on the dance floor. Benji hovered beside the queen, heart pounding louder than the music. "Your Majesty?" Queen Beatrice inhaled. "It is—" She paused so long, Benji's wing edges trembled. "Magnificent!" Cheers erupted. Benji exhaled, deflating like a whoopee cushion. Diplomats toasted with nectar shots. The queen gestured grandly. "I hereby appoint Benji B. Honeysworth III as Royal Interior Decorator, Guardian of the Chandelier, and Keeper of the Combe-Seerage Residence." She leaned closer, voice softer. "And let the record show lavender is the new marigold," Bazelda squealed, striking a victorious pose. Ned updated the budget to reflect infinite prestige. Cliff sneezed confetti pollen. The gala reached euphoric heights until a crash silenced the room. The chandelier's central support beam let out a sinister snap. Sugar droplets tinkled. Dignitaries looked up in horror as the chandelier sagged. Benji's new title flashed before his eyes, along with a headline: Royal Decorator debuts and destroys Queen. Instinct took over. He zipped to the ceiling, grabbed a loose sugar strand, and buzzed like never before. "Bazelda, counterweight now," he yelled. Bazelda dove, lassoing the opposite side with spider silk. Cliff flew up, allergic tears streaming, and braced a pillar. Ned barked logistical orders: "Shift the load, redistribute the tensile stress." Worker bees swarmed. The chandelier wobbled, crystals clinking like dice in a cup. Finally, with one synchronized heave, they hoisted it back into place. Applause thundered. The queen dabbed her brow with a petal. Benji descended, panting. "Routine structural stress test," he joked weakly. The queen arched an eyebrow. Then she laughed, a melodious hum that rippled through the hall and set the chandelier sparkling even brighter. "You're full of surprises, Decorator," the gala resumed with renewed vigor. Guests lined up to tour the property. The carpenter ants admired the ergonomic ruins of their negotiations. The orchid bee regained consciousness, took one look at the honey fall, and fainted again. Inspector Barnabas sampled a honey cocktail, pronounced it within regulation viscosity, and promptly fell asleep in a chaise longue. As the party mellowed to a post-midnight glow, Benji found larval Lynn sweeping confetti. "You saved my thorax," he told her. She shrugged. "Someone had to nudge the artistic genius." "Genius is generous," he said. She glanced at the chandelier. "Well, next time use a thicker sugar gauge." Benji grinned. "Noted." A week later, Benji stood on a balcony of the concierge residence, overseeing finishing touches, installing a pollen deodorizing ventilation system, mapping escape routes for claustrophobic butterflies, and contracting glowworm lighting for midnight snacks. He had business cards in 12-petal textures and a waiting list of clients across 3 meadows. Even Barnabas booked him for a subdued bachelor pad. That morning, a courier beetle delivered an envelope scented with wild rose. Inside was a hand-scrawled note from Queen Beatrice. "Dear Decorator, the palace walls sing with color and light. I catch foreign queens glancing about, envious but polite. You have turned mere hexagons into poetry. I require your talents for a private project, a royal retreat deep in the Hive, somewhere away from court noise. Discretion essential. Compensation, 3 vats royal jelly, plus something rarer, creative freedom. Peace. Lavender stay." Benji's wing beats quickened. He gazed over the honey horizon, where worker bees traced lazy arcs under the sun. He remembered the days of bungled waggle dances, windshield close calls, and wax buckets. He pictured new chambers he might carve, themes he might explore, opalescent mooncalm suites, underwater illusions using clear nectar, perhaps a secret library scented with clover. Bazelda approached, sketchbook in hand. "Ready to scandalize the hexagons again?" Benji smiled. "Let's make them buzz." He tucked the queen's note into his thorax pocket, spread his wings, and dove into open air, drawing invisible blueprints across the sky. Somewhere beneath him, the hive hummed, a labyrinth of cells waiting to be transformed. And if one little bee could see beyond nectar counts and waggled charts to the beauty of color and space, maybe any insect could imagine their own walls knocked down, lifted up, or painted lavender. After all, life was short, wings were fragile, and the world was made of hexagons begging for chandeliers. The end.